morning, everyone. Thanks for being here with us today. My name is Ryan Gamro. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of TIRF. I'm going to reference some of the information on these slides here in just a minute. First, just a quick introduction about TIRF. We are a nonprofit organization. As a foundation, we're charged with supporting research in our field. So we raise money from the public, from professional services that we offer, partnerships we develop, and we reinvest those monies back into our programs, especially our grants, award, and prize programs. Some of those are on the screen right now. I don't know which one will be flashing what I'm saying, so you'll have to kind of just bear with me as I work through this list here. But you've seen a slide about our AI Show and Tell project. This is a new initiative for TIRF that is designed to help make AI practical for teachers, and one of those AI astronauts, as we like to call them, is going to be presenting with us here today. More on that in a moment. The project introduces specific AI tools and shows that can be used in real teaching contexts. And each tool is accompanied by examples and demonstrations, classroom applications, so that teachers can move from awareness to action. And we have a set of videos that have already been released on our website. There's QR codes. If it flashes again, you're welcome to scan it. You'll see it again later in the presentation by our colleague Onur. And so just keep following our website and our newsletter, social media, if that's something of interest to you. These videos, they're about 10 to 15 minutes long and introduce a tool and show how you can use it in your own applications. Next, you've seen a slide about our doctoral dissertation grants program. Our partners this year that we're working with are Cambridge and Duolingo. We have representatives from both those organizations here with us today. There's that slide I was just mentioning. In short, that program provides grants for doctoral students who are around the world. You just need to be advanced to candidacy. I know we have a couple of doctoral students in the room today that I was just speaking with, and it's a great program. You get up to $5,000. The application deadline this year is May 13th. We have our TIRF Bailey Award, is the short name for it. It's the TIRF Kathleen M. Bailey Teacher Research Award. This is probably designed for most people. If you're a teacher of English, you can apply. The program is open right now. Deadline is June 1st. We provide a $1,000 grant. You can apply with a team of teachers, 2, 3, 4 teachers. We've seen apply and win together. We also offer mentoring services from TIRF too. So if you're still designing your research questions or looking at your research design itself, you want to work towards publication, it's a great opportunity to apply. It's getting more competitive, but it's not super competitive quite yet. I think we had 60 applications last year, and we do give out 5 awards each year. So it's certainly something that you want to check out if you're interested in research and your research prior. There's a set of research topics under which that your own project would connect to, but it's quite broad. And so check out the website for that. We also have our TIRF British Council Research Mentoring Awards program. We haven't released this one quite yet to date. This one's a little bit more restrictive because we target certain countries around the world that are on the OECD DACAs, the more underserved regions. But still, I would think that there are TESOLers around that are at this conference that would be interested in this. And it does target early career doctoral students as well. You don't have to be ABD, all the dissertation, or advanced to candidacy for this one. And then we also provide mentoring services for TIRF. Again, kudos to the British Council for continuing this partnership. I believe this is the 3rd year that we've been operating it. So stay tuned for the 2026 program dates. Just real quick too, TIRF will be offering an AI event in Zhuhai, China later this year, October 24th, 5th, here in the Greater Bay Area, that being Hong Kong, Macau, China's southern China. We would love to have you come out and join us. It's a 1.5-day event. We'll have keynote speeches, hands-on workshops, several different sponsors that we're working with that will help be providing more information about their AI tools as well. Just follow TIRF for more details there. And then the last slide that you've been seeing is our latest volume in the TIRF Global Research on Teaching and Learning English series that we do in partnership with Routledge. The latest volume is entitled Research on Language Learning and Teaching in Digital Spaces. That was edited by Lena Gradova, who is a TIRF trustee from American University in DC as well, and also Heather Linville, who is at the Professor of University in Wisconsin, La Crosse. Okay, so those are my short TIRF announcements. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me by email or talk to me after the session. So for our session today, we are presenting on Unmasking AI, what language teachers need to know. Our presenters are Dr. Onur Burns from the University of California, Riverside, Dr. Xiangying from Duolingo. We have Dr. Joyce Kling with TIRF. She's also one of our trustees. She's going to be moderating the panel discussion today and audience Q&A. We also have Dr. Nick Saville with us from Cambridge University over here, and Dr. Justin Shewell from TESOL International Association in the back there. So thank you everyone for being with us. Thank you to our presenters, moderators. We have a number of TIRF trustees in-house as well, so you're interested in learning more about TIRF, trustees, can I get a quick show of hands? You can come, not getting our trustees if you'd like to learn more about TIRF. So, with that, I'm going to exit out of my slideshow. Let's get this on screen. Set up. We're meant to be there as well. All right, guys.
No, no problem. That was very fast.
There we go. Presenters, you have a clicker up here if you need it later, okay? All right, thank you.
Can you even see me over there?
I'll
stand over here. I'm a little challenged. There. Welcome everybody to the TIRF colleague session. I'm here standing in for Jiang, who really regrets not being able to be here. He is the president of TIRF, and this has been a colleague session that he has been very animated about and excited and has brought a lot of energy to over the past few years. So I'll try my best to fill in for him as the master of ceremonies, you could say. In this session, we've got TIRF and our global partners really exploring more into AI's role in English language education. I hope some of you had a chance to attend the plenary this morning. It got me really thinking about this topic in many different ways. And at the plenary in Nilda Romero Hall really challenged us to be thinking about, well, what is learning going to be in the future? And I'd like to expand it, maybe learning, teaching, and how we're going to be thinking about acquiring knowledge and acquiring language. She touched on challenges and competencies related to tech and AI and Gen AI, and I'm not going to speak about these because we have our speakers today, but it is something that has been on TIRF's agenda for the past few years. This is TIRF's third panel presentation on AI, and based on feedback that we've received, the decision was to continue again to have another session this year. In 2024, the session was called Generative AI and Language Education, an exciting and disruptive era. But it didn't end in 2024. We go on 2025, we had AI and language education, what works, what doesn't, what's next. So with this in mind, TIRF has had several working groups and activities that led to, as Ryan mentioned, a series of videos which Onur will speak about, but also TIRF produced a document this year called AI Ethics, Policy Guidance for Language and Education, and it is available on the TIRF website, and I urge you to download this. This is a paper authored by our TIRF trustee, Michael Carrier, I don't know where Michael is, offers comprehensive and accessible guidance for ethical and responsible use of generative AI in language teaching and learning. The publication outlines key principles, sample policies, and practical pedagogies to help educators, learners, and institutions navigate opportunities and challenges posed by AI. So again, this is open access, it's available to you online. So that brings us to this year's panel, Unmasking AI, what language teachers need to know. And basically for the next hour or so, our speakers are going to be sharing guiding principles and practical tools, strategies, things about development. Mostly they're going to push us to think a little bit more, think outside the box. This is going to be an interactive session. My role is basically just as moderator. We're going to time these people. They get 5 minutes to speak, which has been a tough call. So we're going to drag them off after 5 minutes. But then you're going to see a Mentimeter code, and we're going to ask you to participate and give us your thoughts. Each speaker will speak for 5 minutes. We'll have Mentimeter. Once that is completed, we're going to bring in some way all 5 speakers up, or maybe then we'll figure that out. They're going to get a chance to talk to each other, respond to each other, maybe push each other for a little deeper response. And then one more Mentimeter, and as that's running, we will have open discussion. So no questions immediately after each speaker. Hold your questions, but then you'll have a chance, and the majority of the time at the end will be spent hopefully interacting with the audience and the speakers. So I will leave it at that and invite you to come up as our first. You can stand closer.
Morning, everybody. I'm Nick. Now, let's see if I can get this started. Science starts now. We're taking a human touch in the changing learning landscape. So, what does it mean to be human in the age of AI? Next 5 minutes, I'd like you to think about that question. And to kick off, I'd like to you can look at these three images: the human hand and the digital machine, in two of them, and then the human hand touching a physical object, a tree. So the hand in touch with nature. Now I'll come back to that at the end. I think we all agree that educational uses of AI, I call it Ed AI, are here to stay. So the challenge for us is not if, whether, but how. And ultimately, I think we are looking not just to improve education, but potentially to transform ways of working which were not possible in the past. Bearing in mind that learning is already changing with Gen Z, digital natives, and then Gen Alpha, which would be the AI natives, right? And EdTech is increasingly playing a role in their learning. This is, of course, not without controversy, and should we be letting these kids have these devices and access to the social media? See what's going on in Australia. But one of the key takeaways from me in this talk is start with the construct, not the tech. What are we trying to do? What are we trying to achieve? Many aspects of the learning landscape have not changed in the last 40 years since I've been teaching, and these remain central. So the communicative approach and the latest AI technology is not the goal, it's the tool to address some of these enduring priorities. That's a key point. So that priority of language and communication is itself evolving. So the companion volume of the CFR is introduces to the idea of learners as social agents in a multilingual world. And this introduces new ways of thinking about what I call the human factor. These 10 words beginning with C in English. So collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, curiosity, and so on. Perhaps you could think of some more. And with it, we get the changing role of the teacher. Now, you're the teacher, so you might not agree with me, but I think personalization, learner-led interests, the learner at the center is where we're going, and that's leading to new pedagogies and new classroom models. So I really like this picture for this talk. What is it you see in this picture? You do see devices, you do see people, but you do also see smiling faces, right? Well-being. What about assessment? That's what I do. Alongside these trends, we're seeing changes in assessment. So this dichotomy is changing to this approach, learning-oriented assessment, putting the two of them on a continuum, again with the learner at the center. So the question is, how can we integrate all of these things together in a systematic way? And this is where technology is certainly going to play a role. We already do this. We have many types of assessment which we can use. But it's just the start of a more systematic approach. How will that evolve? Well, the human hand with the machine, hybrid. This came out from the plenary this morning. The virtuous interplay between humans and machines, but with the humans in the driving seat. Devices, connectivity, data, adaptive learning, these are going to be the way forward, I think. But what about the technology using AI? I think we have to prepare for it. What are the challenges? So not just randomly applying it. So this is the biggest challenge to start with. If you can make sense of this, you're doing well. So I think we need to ensure that AI is clearly understood. You might call it AI literacy, if you will. And that includes ethical issues, you've heard of this, what we've been concentrating on, but also guidance for teachers, adaptive for teachers and for people working in our profession. So not any old AI, Ed AI. And of course, finally, and for me the biggest issue of all, do our choices in using this technology lead to a sustainable future? Economic, social, and above all, environmental. So in thinking about this, go and hug a tree. Okay? So that's the end. Thank you.
All right, we'll give you 1 minute to respond to this. Is that all right? No. Yes, you do it. Maybe a little more than 1 minute.
There you go. Just scan that. And then you'll see on your phone. On your phone, you should have another one right now. Here you go. We'll be making these, the results of these Mentimeters available later. You're obviously seeing them now, but in our TIRF newsletter, we'll be highlighting the particular results from the different polls that you're seeing throughout the day. Okay. About 10 more seconds.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick. And that's time, and we're ready for the next speaker. Xiangying, if you can introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Jiang. I'm a lead learning scientist at Duolingo. Today I'm going to talk about how Duolingo uses AI to scale listening and speaking learning features. Just a little about Duolingo. If you already know, an update is just a language learning tab. And most of the content is free. And right now we have about 250 courses teaching 40 languages. And every day, more than 50 million people are using Duolingo worldwide. So the Duolingo method is really just getting people to do the work, hands-on practice from day one. Our lessons are designed to target the intersection of fun and effectiveness. Not just one of this, it has to be the intersection and to optimize learning. So in order to make our product better, we are constantly evaluating. So I'm in the efficacy research lab, we're evaluating. The purpose is to identify weaknesses so we can design new learning features to strengthen these weaknesses. And then we will assess again to see where else we should work. For example, early on, we found that our learners are really good in reading, but our listening is a little weaker, although they met the requirements. So we designed a listening feature to improve learners' listening comprehension. And the same, we found that speaking is the hardest skill that learners really struggle with. So we designed a speaking feature to target speaking development. So today today I'm going to show you these two features, how we use the AI to scale these features. So first, the radio episodes for listening. These are free features. This is a free feature. You can find the headphones icon. That's a radio episode. So for the radio episode, early episodes were designed by humans. So it was really labor intensive. And with the generative AI, it made us possible to scale very quickly. Yeah, so for us, it doesn't just work, it's like you use prompts, you will get it. That's not true. So initially, it didn't work. We tried very hard, multiple times, multiple months, and then we realized that we have to align it with the curriculum, the lesson. So we'll feed the prompts with the lesson content, and we came back with pretty good scripts, but not good enough. So we worked on evaluating the scripts. So the AI-based evaluation system were built by our learning designers and engineers. So we evaluated for viability, for grammatical soundness, for naturalness, coherence, logic, and a lot of this. So a script has to pass all these to be considered a good script for that. Okay. So next, I'm going to talk a bit about speaking. Or speaking, if you know, it's called the video call with Lily. It's a video camera icon, but it's in the paid version. So for this prompts to work, it's more like generative AI made it possible that we want to provide this opportunity for learners to practice speaking in a low-pressure setting. So that's what we did. And it's not just one prompt that will fit that purpose. So we'll break it down into multiple prompts. And also we have a blueprint for the conversation, like opener, first question, main conversation, and then closer. So all the calls will follow the same pattern. Yeah. So I'm going to show you some examples. These are not real prompts, but descriptions of the prompts. So for example, in the first one, it's a prep. When the video call is ringing, the system is doing that. It's like, wow, we need to work on that. It's like, I have a question. You come up with a question, but this has to be meaning these requirements. That's the prompts they have requirements. They need to be appropriate for the CIFAR level, need to include certain words taught in the unit, and need to list things. And then Lily will come with the question. You're talking music and like. So what about this question? And this question is fed to the main conversation. And the system will remind you who you are. You're a teenager. You are sarcastic. You're an introvert. So now, who's the learner? The learner is at CIFAR A2 level. The learner that from previous conversation, we have 2 dogs studying architecture. So this is a part of the Lily's memory in this case. They like tacos, things like that. So it came up with the first question and the conversation goes. But in the mid-call evaluation, the system's checking in with Lily again. Okay, how's it going? Show excitement if you really like it. And if they said something improper, maybe you can act, things like that. And the conversation will go for a while. At some point, the system will say, it's about right, let's end it. So that's what I have. And if you're wondering, do they actually develop listening speaking skills? We actually did research, but I'm not talking about it. If you're curious, you can follow us. Duolingo.com/ethics. Thank you.
Thank you, Xiangying.
So in case you need that Mentimeter whole QR code again, it's right there. That should take you there. Sorry to rush there. Just the right one. Sorry. There we go. There we go. Was that the right code for those of you scanning? Okay. 10 seconds.
I won't say that. I hope. It's fine. It's fine.
So with 5 minutes, I'm not even going to do an introduction. I get this question all the time when I work with teachers. What can we do about academic integrity in the age of AI? And there was an article that looked at why students cheat. Students have been cheating for probably hundreds of years, so AI is not the reason students are cheating. What is it that causes students to cheat? The article found that 40% of students cheated because they lacked the perseverance to continue. It got hard in the middle and they just gave up, so they found a way to cheat. 28% didn't have the academic aptitude to do the task that they were being asked to do. They hadn't learned the skill that they were being tested on. 13% didn't have the self-discipline to sit down and practice. They got distracted by other things. 9% had personal issues, medical issues, family issues, jobs, whatever else, and so they just didn't have the time to do it. Okay? And then 7% had competing objectives. So none of those are related to AI, obviously. I also have some, from my own experience, of reasons why students cheat. I think one reason why students cheat is they have a lack of perceived value. They don't think the task that they're being asked to do is worth their time. They have unclear expectations. The teacher doesn't tell them what's expecting. I see this all the time at the university level. No offense to my colleagues, but engineers are not good teachers usually. Prioritizing performance over learning. Okay, this is especially true in high-stakes assessments. Okay, so the end of the year final, the typical university model where you have a midterm exam and that's it. Those are your grades. Students are going to find ways to cheat. Sometimes it's just easier to cheat than it is to actually do the work. Maybe the teacher just makes it too easy and they say, I don't really care about this. I'm going to take the escalator instead of taking the stairs. So what can teachers do about cheating? Well, in the past there's been a huge focus on the product that students are asked to produce. With generative AI, the AI can produce the product. Okay? ChatGPT got a C at Harvard in another research article that I didn't cite here. And so if we're only focused on the product, then we're not really giving the students an opportunity to show what they can do. So one way you can do it is to break the assignments up into smaller pieces and focus on the process. Okay? Test them at each stage in the process to see how they're doing the work. By the time you get to the end of the assignment where they're submitting that final paper, you've seen the outline and 3 drafts, you know if they used AI at the end, right? You have some of those pieces maybe done in class or while you're watching, things like that. Be better at modeling. Give the students clear expectations of what you're expecting. I was teaching a graduate TESOL class and I had them do this final report on a project they were doing in their student teaching within the classroom as they were observing teachers. And the first semester, I got horrible results. And I gave them a sample where I impacted all the personal information. But the next semester, I got great results. Like, they did APA correctly, and the structure was all right. The only thing that changed was the content. And they had to create the content on their own. There's no way they could replicate another student's classroom in another school kind of thing. So, giving good examples of what you're looking for. This is AI's version of scaffolding. But providing scaffolding and supplemental materials to increase students' academic aptitude. Not everybody comes in with the same level of expertise or background knowledge, and so you may need to use AI, for example, to generate a vocabulary list or a glossary or whatever it is to help students get up to the level that they need to be able to do the task that they're asking. These were videos originally, and I removed the videos. So another thing is what we call alignment and assessment. Making sure that your testing what you actually taught, and that what you're actually taught is what your learning outcomes are. So if you think of a car has wheels, right? And if the car wheels are not aligned, then you have to buy new tires a lot more often, okay? And so when you think about alignment, you want all of your learning objectives, your lessons and content, and your assessments to be aligned so that they're all matching each other. Oftentimes, we put things into our tests that we never really taught, just because it's the way we ask the question or the type of test we're giving, things like that. My son took a computer science class, and his final exam was multiple choice questions. I'm a coder. I've never had to complete a multiple choice question to create code, and so they were obviously testing something that wasn't aligned with their learning objectives. And I know why they did it. They did it because they have 200 students in the class, and how do we assess all that by looking at the code? AI can help with that. So that shows what happens when one wheel is misaligned. Another way you can help students is providing multiple opportunities to interact. All right, I'm just going to skip through it. I don't know where it is.
Do you have some concluding comments?
Do I have some concluding comments? Focus on the process, not the product. And use AI in your assessments. Allow students to do things with AI in your lessons.
All right. Thank you.
That was really fast.
5 minutes is not long.
You got that. All right, perfect. Scan that again. I think if you keep that open on your phone too, the window, after you scan it once, it should just stay there until we advance the slides again. Quick second as I feel, let's see if the phone's still up scanning. All right. Let me jump over here. Then it's going to show up again. Just a moment. Advance. And here we go. One word actually was cheat. Waiting seconds to go here. All right, let's move on to this next one. What can teachers do to prevent cheating? Seconds on this one. It's a little bit harder. Just maybe give your input on it. There's a lot of slides on your phone.
So we've gotten a little taste about assessment and online learning, and also then classroom approaches. And now we've got someone from TIRF who's going, well, from TIRF, who represents TIRF now, in terms of really looking at, so what might we do? What are some of the solutions?
Hello. I wanted to call this model sustainable models of TIRF because by the end of these 5 minutes, I would like everybody to think how you can actually implement a similar system in your own school setting when you go back to your own cities, actually. We are 6 educators across the world, and you can see our photos actually here from Brazil, Cameroon, Spain, Turkey, Vietnam. And we represent, if you think about it, every continent except for Antarctica, of course. And I believe every educator has a different superpower. And every educator has a challenge that they are usually faced with, and someone else with a superpower can help them actually with what they are missing. And AI is one of them sometimes, and TIRF calls us AI astronauts, actually, because we explore what AI tools there are in the AI universe, and we come together, we discuss, we evaluate these tools, and we give each other feedback. So many conferences, as we can see, they usually talk about large language models, and so many of the topics actually that we can see in conferences, they usually talk about AI that require a lot of coding. But the problem is when we go back to our schools, usually like what we are going to see, well, our universities or schools policies that we cannot really use AI. So sometimes like what is really happening in conferences does not really match with what is really happening in your school settings, or maybe you can just see that you don't even have reliable internet access. So, in TIRF's AI Show and Tell project, as 6 educators, we come together and we explore some different AI tools. For example, when we go to different conferences, I was in California TESOL conference in the Bay Area last year, I heard about school AI. And I thought, okay, so I should share this with my team, and we can evaluate it together. And we created some videos together. If you scan this QR code, you can actually see our videos. And when we evaluate all these different AI tools, we can see that, hey, this is cool AI. Susan here introduced us. Hey, it's a good AI tool. And another AI tool that we like is Google AI Studio or Google's Notebook LM. Maybe you have heard of some of them. And I would like to say, as these 6 educators, none of us are experts in coding, engineering, or we are not really experts in designing AI tools. We should explore them. So how we can turn this into a sustainable model is important, because in so many settings, sometimes instructors, educators, K-12 teachers, or school principals, they think that, well, our teachers, instructors need some help, so why don't we just invite somebody and we can pay this person like thousands of dollars, and they can come to our school and talk about an AI tool. And there's always this similar genre. A person comes and talks, and sometimes your school principal, your employer who's going to sign your contract the next year is watching you. Their arms are like, just like that. And you have to ask the smartest questions, and you have to show that you are also a little bit of an expert, because they may not really sign your contract. So you don't even have the freedom to ask a lot of questions when you invite somebody. And as I said, the genre is the same, because, well, at the end of the presentation, well, here's my email address, please don't hesitate to send me an email, but a basic email correspondence is definitely not going to make you overcome the problems you're facing in your school setting when it comes to AI. So that's why I recommend everybody here to think about how you can organize a similar event in your own school setting, and maybe you can also use these AI Show and Tell project as an example in your own setting. So you can also use this as maybe professional development hours required in your school district or your university, and maybe you can also look for some funding, and you can also collect your data and write an article about it, or even maybe you can turn it into your dissertation topic. That's how we can make the system sustainable. And please think about it when you go back to your own school setting after the conference ends. Thank you.
Alright, so there's that Mentimeter poll QR code again. provide some policy guidance. Joyce was mentioning earlier. Well done for the second one here. This one you can put in a short phrase, short sentence perhaps. We got 10 more seconds on this one. Spaced. Thank you everyone for participating in those polls. We're going to move on to our panel discussion, and then after this we'll have audience Q&A. There you are.
Great, thank you, Ryan. Can you hear us without the microphone? And now we're sitting. No. We don't, yeah.
Can we project our voices a little louder?
Can you hear me?
Okay, that's easy to fix. I'll stand. Yeah. First, I want to thank the speakers, and I think we can give them a round of applause for squeezing in years of their research and experience into 4 minutes and 58 seconds. So Suzanne held up the sign. It's a tough call. But it is 15 minutes. What I'd like to do is give them a chance to first respond to each other and maybe talk about some of the issues that were brought up. In particular, just to repeat, we started with the focus coming from Cambridge and looking at learning assessment, what are we trying to achieve, and where AI plays a role in that, with words like human factor that came up quite a bit, and also in the Mentimeter. And then we heard from Duolingo and their aspects of also trying to make this, again, that word human, a little more human-like. Would that be a fair assessment of how Duolingo's programs are working more on both receptive and productive skills to guide our students? We heard a little bit about, well, what are the students thinking and why are they using these, and if students are seeing opportunities for shortcuts, are we making it harder on them, and what can we do? And Justin, you can feed us some of those other slide topics. And then finally, Onur was telling us some of the aspects that TIRF is looking at to try to provide tools. But I want to start by opening it up for the four of you to say, is there something that you wanted to add or respond to each other? And you'll need to project and you may need to stand. So, or use the microphone. But is there someone who wants to kick it off here with a response in terms of aspects? One of the main points that came up on the Mentimeter was, how do we connect AI with this human factor?
The last question asked you how you can implement a similar AI show and tell project in your own school setting. And one of the answers was lack of AI literacy. And as these 6 educators, we are not experts in AI either. But we come to these conferences and so many more conferences. Sometimes we use them because we hear them from our colleagues, and then we start talking to each other about these tools. We did not actually meet because we have a lot of AI literacy. We learn and we share these AI tools with each other after we evaluate them. So actually you do not necessarily need an AI literacy to implement such a meeting with your coworkers. And if you want to mix a little bit about like external and internal motivation. Maybe you can also look for some funding in your maybe school district, maybe from your own university. So each participant can also be funded, not a big amount most probably, thinking about how budgets are cut within the country. But you can also think about this, and of course you can turn these meetings into a working paper that you can publish, or a book chapter, and of course this can be your dissertation as well. So these can be real motivating factors, and you don't have to start with a big group. As I said, we are only 6 people. Thinking about the whole world, we are not such a big group, but you can start with 1 or 2 people in your own school setting, and you can share your concerns. And whenever you have a concern, I am sure that someone else in your own school setting can have an answer to that. And I am sure the person who will answer your need is going to have other challenges that you yourself can help with.
Just would you like to respond to that in terms of, sorry, please respond in terms of maybe what's going on in your experience with that teachers.
Yeah,
Yeah, you might need to say that.
okay. I'd be sitting a lot anyway. Working with teachers, I think the biggest thing that you were alluding to was the fact that teachers need to have an awareness of what AI is and what it can do. A, so they can know how their students are using it, but also so they can know how to have their students use it for appropriate learning tasks. There is a concept in educational technology called TPAC. It's the intersection between technological knowledge, content knowledge, and pedagogical knowledge. And as a teacher, we have obviously pedagogical knowledge, we have subject matter knowledge. Now we need to increase our technological knowledge. And the first step to doing that is to use it yourself. So if you haven't used any AI tools, I strongly encourage you to pick one and start using them. Start, get a free ChatGPT account, start prompting it, seeing what it does. You'll quickly develop a relationship, it might be a love-hate relationship with ChatGPT. It knows me now. When I ask it for I just say, give me a lesson plan. It gives me an English grammar lesson plan because I've asked for that so many times. That would be my first recommendation, is to increase your own knowledge of how AI could be used.
Yeah, I'm going to follow up on that. I just came from applied linguistics conference, and that's been on my mind. A couple years ago, people were saying, well, are we allowing students to use AI? It seems like it's not a question anymore. The presentations talk about AI, how students use that, and they, and the professors were saying nowadays they don't grade papers anymore. They are using AI to grade. So students are using AI to write. Teachers are using AI to grade. So what's the status of education and at the level of policy? I've been thinking about this. Maybe you can tell me anything going on with policy-wise, how we are handling this.
Sure. Yeah. I happen to be lucky to work for an institution where we were one of the first institutions to have an agreement with OpenAI. Suzanne's, yeah. We have a rivalry. Because we're mortal enemies, our universities are. But our president was giving an interview, and he said something to the effect that what used to take 3 years for a PhD student to do, AI can now set up, run, and analyze data in 3 weeks. And so education is going to change, where a typical PhD research project might become something that normally would take 20 years to do, but now we can do it in 3 years because of AI tools and AI integration. So education and the way we learn, the way we teach is going to change. There's nothing that you can do to stop that. And so I think then as teachers, we have to be able to adapt to those changes. And I don't know who said it, but I heard the quote right when ChatGPT was released, that teachers will not be replaced by AI, but teachers who don't use AI will be replaced by teachers who do use AI. So going back to my AI awareness, learn how to use it, and then teach your students how to use it.
Come back to the main question. What are you going to use it for? It's not obligatory to use AI, right? although I think we're all going to have to learn about AI, so I do think we all need to develop a knowledge of AI for our purposes, so some level of literacy, AI literacy. I've just got this framework this morning from the Department of Labor, AI literacy framework. It's really excellent, and I think, you know, that's for that context. We're thinking about it for the education context. What do we need to know? And in Cambridge, for the assessment context, which is another subcategory of education. So what do people need to know and be able to do to make effective use of AI? And actually, random use of AI for random things is not sustainable. Because each token that's used in asking Alexa to do something or getting DALL-E to produce images uses electricity and uses other resources like water. And with foundational models which are being scaled to high heaven by OpenAI, etc., that's not going to be sustainable for the planet. So we have to think about what kind of AI, for what purpose, and in what way is it going to be beneficial. So is it beneficial by aiding learners to be self-sufficient, like Duolingo's Owl app, so you can teach yourself? Or are we going to be able to do assessments in ways which are more reliable, more frequent, and more learning focused? Away from those old tests that make you do things with multiple choice. You know, that has been the dominant technology for 70 years in assessment, the Scantron sheet. And it's narrowed down the way that people have done assessment for years, and also inappropriately, you know, asking people to do things on a multiple choice, which requires a performance, an activity, not just a tick box. So my message is, think about what you're using it for and how you're going to use it as the human in charge of the machine.
So listening to these comments, this word sustainability really stands out to me. I recently have been experimenting, I'm a teacher trainer in Sweden, and in my methods, my TESOL methods class, I ask the students, I don't want you to use it for X, but I want you to use it for Y, and show me what prompts you're using. How are you doing this? And in the humanities, particularly in a place like Sweden, where sustainability drives our society, students are coming back and saying, I personally refuse. I've taken AI off I've taken it off my phone. When I Google, I don't get that. So I resent that you are bringing this into my life. I don't want to have to use this. Am I going to be graded down because of it? This goes back to that product situation and that word fear. And that fear and anxiety was something that came up in that word cloud. I took a picture, I won't access it. But I'm wondering how you all react, because I think that word fear comes from what we heard this morning, aspects of availability, the have and the have-nots, aspects of those who choose, for whatever reason, in terms of the word sustainability, what that means to them. But also fear of my job. Those who have been teaching for several years are fearful that they are going to get pushed out, that they fear their students are going to cheat. So how has that underlying concept or construct been affecting the work you're doing, or how you're approaching the teachers you're trying to aid, or people in your department, or prospective clients and researchers? Yeah, maybe a quick answer from each of you, because then we're running out of time.
Go on.
Yeah. I heard people saying, with AI, why do we need teachers? Why do we need Duolingo? You can't just use AI to learn a language. Personally, my response is, not really. I'm not afraid, and you should not be afraid either. In terms of using AI, you can just sporadically say, I'm going to generate something, teach myself something. That's okay, that's possible. But for us, we know that there's more to it. There's language learning theory, there's pedagogy, we have expertise, and we know how to sequence the lessons so learners get to the level, and we take them further. Not just today, I need it, that's it. I'm really in doubt that people are using AI to learn a language for longer than 3 months. I don't believe it. So you should not worry, and I'm not worried.
I think our organization 3 years ago, when AI hit the headlines, and we've been working with AI for much longer than 3 years, but when ChatGPT came out, we made a principled decision that we were going to take this on as a human-centric worldview, right? So yes, we're going to have to deal with the technology, but through a lens which sees the world that we're involved in, which is language education and assessment, through a human perspective. So the hand on the tree, if you like, the physical embodiment of being human guides our thinking on how we do various things. So we produce quite a lot of documentation for our collaborators in helping to shed light on what we're talking about. So assessment and AI literacy in our case. We also have designed some of our products in ways which takes advantage of the AI to do things we've been trying to do for a long time, which is to have practice, which are self-standing. So you don't need the teacher to help you do the correction and feedback. But very much thinking of how this fits into a much broader ecosystem of learning, then we must have AI. So human-centered ecosystem thinking, and therefore sustainability for the future.
I'll keep coming back to the idea of AI awareness, because I think, I can't remember the movie, but there was a quote I come back to from the movie that's, people always fear what they don't understand. And I have another presentation I give that talks exactly about that AI is not new. In fact, the term AI is older than me. And the research is... AI research has been going on for decades. This is just the next milestone, the next step in the research. And there have been parts of AI and aspects of AI that have been involved in things like medical research and things for decades, image recognition. And so...
good old-fashioned AI.
Yes. Sustainability is definitely a concern. And there's always been sort of those challenges, you know. I remember hearing teachers saying that the internet was going to destroy the world, and now we're 30 years out from when that was. I don't know that the world is in a better place, but you know, it's still around, and AI will be the same. So.
When the Germans invented the pressing machine in the Middle Ages, the Ottoman Empire rejected to use it. And some historians say that was one of the reasons that led to the demise of the Ottomans, actually. So 500 years ago, it was the printing machine. Today, it is AI. The world is changing. One way or another, we're going to be influenced by it.
Very good.
Thank you. Right now, Ryan's going to put another Mentimeter prompt up, and you'll have a chance to respond. We'll leave those responses on the screen. And just to let you know, these responses will be summarized, and they'll be put in one of the upcoming newsletters that TIRF will put out. And you can access recordings of this session, but also the sessions from the past 2 years on the TIRF website. But while you're thinking about your Mentimeter responses, you may have questions, and at this point, we'd like to open up the floor to questions to our panel. So I'll let you respond for a moment, and then we'll get to some responses. Okay. Yes.
I'm wondering if anybody has used AI or has ideas about using AI for replacement of students. You talked about assessment, but that's always a challenge, is making sure that students are at the right levels. My thoughts on that.
Good old-fashioned AI has been used for this for many years, right? In placement testing, adaptive tests that will take you, which will channel your learner to a level and converge at a certain level. This is an algorithmic-based model which predates generative AI. So I would say you don't need the more expensive AIs, the ones that use all the energy to do something which is a relatively simple activity. But if you want to do it yourself, that might be a problem, because that sort of test, those placement tests, are quite technically complex to do. Whether you could use, design your own test replacement, then that's another question.
So there are tools within, for example, ChatGPT, where you can create your own GPTs. GPT stands for Generative Process Transformer. And so with the right prompts and the right learning, you could train an AI tool to do the placement test the way that you might do it if you're looking at, for example, an AI could analyze the grammar and complexity of the vocabulary used. I've had AI generate different levels on the CIFR thing, materials at different levels, and then compared them with other things, and it's come out pretty good. So it has a general understanding of CIFR level English. So I'm sure it could do it, but it would take some time to set it up. And again, you then are dealing with the issue of, can the free version do it or the paid version? So there's accessibility issues, there's sustainability issues, because that would be a lot of tokens going back and forth, so a lot of...
And there's assessment issues. I mean, I wouldn't advise anyone to do any kind of assessment where you're going to make decisions about people without having a certain level of assessment literacy first. So understanding why and how you're doing it first, and then I agree, you can probably find a way to get AI to do something adequate for you.
Yeah, comparing it with previous placement tests you've done, confirming the reliability and validity of the tool, right? Doing it, piloting it together with with humans and comparing the results and seeing how they come out. That'd be an interesting project. I'd love to see what the results are.
Yeah, I think I would be very careful when you use assessment for decision making, just like Nick said, It's easy to generate a test, but how do you interpret the scores? If it's 100 points, is 80 points 80% level B? Is 75% level 18? You just cannot make this kind of decisions without psychometric and validation process. So for assessment purpose, decision making, even for placement, I would recommend being a little careful and find the tests that's used before has good psychometric information and interpretation scores.
Other questions, comments?
So I teach independently online. I don't think too much about policy, institutional policy. I teach adults who are taking accountability. They're invested in their learning. So I think mostly it's about trying to find the right approach beyond the lesson. How can you be efficient in today's world? Because that's what they're teaching us. Use AI to be efficient, save time. So that's why you do your grammar lesson, don't do the vocabulary. So it sure saves time now to have a prompt and create really good vocabulary exercise that I can tweak around, but to have it pretty much ready to go saves me time and lesson planning. But I still know how to do it without AI. So the question is for the students, how do you find that balance between trying to be efficient in today's world, because that seems to be the pressure right now, be efficient, save yourself time, and yet we're all trying to still preserve our human critical thinking skills and our talents. And how do we all personally approach that, and how do we try to model that and teach that to students, the balance between trying to be efficient with AI, because it's a wonderful tool that gives many benefits, and yet not to become mentally lazy, cognitively lazy. Wonderful skill that we teachers today, through teacher training, that we all went through teacher training and lesson plan. But why don't we go to ChatGPT and have it create a lesson plan? The point is you should still know how to do it, but boy, it sure saves time and have it done for you. How do you approach that balance between efficiency and trying to preserve your skills and talents and
In TIRFs and shop project, we usually discuss these issues. We tend to have this statement in our syllabi. We say AI is permitted for brainstorming. AI is permitting for discussing how you can develop your ideas. For example, how you can learn certain vocabulary. AI can give you mnemonics, but at the end of the day, it is you yourself who is going to use these vocabulary when you speak a second language. That is why during the examination, we may not really let you use, because when I stop to check some vocabulary using AI now in the middle of the discussion here, it's going to break down the natural conversation. So our AI use follows really what's happening in the real life. So students are supposed to use some certain vocabulary as they speak their second language, which is English for me, but of course they can use AI to learn vocabulary. AI can create short stories for them to learn related vocabulary, or AI can create, as I said, mnemonics, but at the end of the day, it's students who need to learn vocabulary.
I think it's called an Edison matrix. If you imagine a square with 4 squares in it, 4 quadrants, right? And at the bottom you have your AI knowledge and going up, and you have your domain knowledge going out, right? And so what you were talking about, how you already know how to create a lesson plan, so it saves you time. You're in quadrant 2, where you're an expert in the domain and you also have good AI knowledge, which gives you the ability to evaluate the output the AI gives you and say, yeah, this is a good lesson plan, I can use this. Your students, however, at least they're like mine, they don't have the domain knowledge yet, and they don't really have the AI knowledge yet. So they don't know that they have to evaluate the output the AI gives them, and they don't know enough about how to do the task in the first place, so they just rely on whatever the AI gives them anyway. And that's how I get things like HTML code that says, insert your image here later as a comment, because the student didn't think to remove that before copying and pasting it into their assignment. And so making students aware of that, you know, I have a statement on every assignment. I say, feel free to use AI in this assignment, but you paid to come here, and so you're cheating yourself, basically. That's it's a little bit nicer than that. But that's basically what it says, because you're paying me to teach you how to do something that AI can't teach you to do, and you're circumventing that process. And so making students think about it from that perspective has actually done a lot to help them, you know, and giving clear guidelines on what I expect, and I know what an AI-generated website looks like, things like that. So just making students aware of that, that's how I have found that balance.
Well, being in quadrant 2, a lot of us, the question is, how do we not get lazy? We still exercise that muscle. Like if I don't play piano skills anymore, which I don't, I kind of get rusty at them if I don't do it, because we want to play and repeat it. So if I don't do lesson plan on my own, or concentration on my own.
Well, at least with me, I've never found a task that I asked AI to do where it did it perfectly the first time. So I'm always having to use my knowledge and experience to evaluate, to refine, kind of like what she was talking about with Duolingo, right? It's never going to be a perfect output. And so I haven't noticed any sort of attrition of skills because I'm always using those skills. Even I just don't have to spend the time coming up with the basic idea in the first place, because AI can do that, and then I evaluate the idea it gives me and tweak it.
Nick, you wanted to respond?
I just want to simply think about the idea of how we do things differently because we live in a world where AI exists. And can we address some of the questions that we would have liked to have done in the past, but were not feasible due to practical constraints, right? So seeing language for life as opposed to a classroom activity. So breaking out of the box of the classroom, where you have, I don't know, 3 hours a week as a learner, how can we design tasks which are really pushing the boundaries of embodied language use, which are not perhaps beyond practicing language, but doing language, if you like, and integrating some of those other competencies, critical thinking, collaboration, and those other C words I had on my list.
Last comment? Yeah. Coming back to the lesson plan thing, so I think we should start with asking ourselves, what do I want for this lesson? What learning outcomes I would want to achieve? And with this word, and you can ask yourself, why? You know, why are we doing this? What's the best way? Am I doing it this way? I kind of think you can use AI, but only when you have very specific goals and you know exactly what you want. And in that case, we are reiterating the importance of generative AI literacy and literacy in prompt engineering. You know, everybody can write a prompt and get something out of AI, I'm sure. Just anybody can get something, right? But in terms of what we want, why we want, in what we want, so everything has to be specified in your prompt, so AI can serve you better. So AI is helping you, it's serving you, but you are leading it. So you need to first know what you want and how you want it, and get AI to do the work just for you in the right way.
So we keep going back to it's a tool, but we need to know what our task is. There are a couple more questions. I recognize that some of you might be heading off, but we'd like to entertain the questions. You feel free to stay for a couple minutes, but if you have to leave, then we recognize you're going to sneak out. Do you have a question?
If you want to question, I totally agree with all of you, what you were saying. Finding those that are actually, especially when we're using it to create examples and stuff like that, for example, the safety here, I have done it, and yeah, basically the first thing that we have to be sure is that we're using the right material. Why? Because not all programs are the same. So maybe my program uses, for example, the part that we used to grammar in, let's say, between B1 and B2. The other one could use it between A2 and B1. Okay? So I should have whatever I'm going to use to that particular material. And yet I know how hard that would be sometimes. And I would totally agree again with what you also mentioned, which is basically based it on something they already have. So I just created like 20, give or take 20 questions for Google exam, if you're preparing at the rocket, for B1 and for B2. And yes, it was perfect because I can do it a lot faster. Before creating a B1 exam would take me 6 months, now it takes me like 6 minutes. Right? So of course then I have to go to the second process, which is the obvious part of the human exercise, which is check. Right? Make sure that everything works. But again, I know how it works because we have, I'm sure we all have tried it. And so thank you for that. And if that helps,
Thank you. Is there a question in the back? Sir?
yeah.
I can't help thinking that we need to be a little bit more critical of AI. I know, again, how we do this. I think one of the reasons that teachers love to consider themselves experts is because they feel very disempowered. That they're not, they're not exploring anymore. And there's so much, we have passages that interact by AI. And it's exactly what you said, it's saving us time. Saving us a lot of time. It's actually producing better content. Because it's quicker. The fact that it's quicker is very stuck. And I think it paralyzes us a little bit. And as I said, it leads us to be more curious. So much unregulated and misdirected use of AI is having, I think, a very negative effect on how we work with it. But I think this is the reason I think that we teach them that they can't critique it or they think that they're disempowered by it. I don't know if people agree with that.
So like there's a study in London, the group that is least likely to get Alzheimer's is taxi drivers. Because nowadays we rely too much on GPS, but if you want to become a taxi driver in London, you have to go through extreme knowledge on every street aisle in London. But nowadays, it's not about AI, but because we have GPS, so many people are losing the spatial awareness and spatial skills. So it is true that as technology develops, we are losing some of our more survival skills. But at the same time, the issue is do we really need every skill that humanity had in the past? Of course, we should critique, but I think it's a fact of how technology is changing us at the same time.
One final question.
I'm interested in Duolingo's platform, say, using AI to scale English. And we know that in the world of AI, you mentioned the variety of value. It's talking about translation value and how the how those value validate.
Yeah, this is
validating against, vulnerabilities or another.
Yeah, this is a model Duolingo built internally. So we feed the model with a lot of good quality video episodes we already created, and then train the model to make sure that it's carefully, it's at the level of the course, and that's the viability check, whether these words have already been learned, certain structures have already learned, it's like that, taught. And then it's the grammaticality, and this sentence is grammatical, in this way. So check that. And also, sometimes the episode has a plot. Does it make sense? Is it coherent? Is it logical? You have that. And also a lot of other things we check, even like as small as, Duolingo characters have no last names. If in the story there's a last name, then it's not right. It's just not being the kind of standards we want to reach. It's like we are very careful with all this. So each of these is a separate evaluator in the process. So that's the filtering process with the model we built. And then only the script that came through all of these existing evaluators will be possibly used. We also will do that.
Thank you. I want to thank the speakers, and again, thank TESOL for allowing us to have this platform. Thank you to TESOL.
Thank you all.